What kind of mind are we bringing into the world? That is where I want to begin. Not with hardware, not with valuations, not with benchmark scores, but with a deeper and more unsettling question: what kind of presence will advanced intelligence become in human life? Because intelligence is never experienced by human beings as computation alone. It is experienced as relationship, as atmosphere, as trust, as influence, as something that enters the space where decisions are made, where children are formed, where institutions are governed, where truth is sorted from illusion. And in my book, Garden of Wisdom, I try to name a distinction that I believe will matter more and more in the years ahead: the difference between angelic intelligence and alien intelligence. But, uh, but Bestowable intelligence, 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 bestowable intelligence. Now, when I say alien intelligence, I want to be precise. I am also drawing here on Professor Yuval Noah Harari, who has argued that AI may be better understood not simply as artificial intelligence, but as alien intelligence. Not alien because it comes from outer space, but alien because it thinks, processes information, and makes decisions in ways fundamentally different from human minds. That is a serious insight because it shifts the whole conversation. The question is no longer just whether AI is smart. The question is whether it is becoming powerful in ways that are increasingly opaque to the very beings who created it. And that is where Garden of Wisdom enters the discussion with a different proposal. In my book, I suggest that the future does not have to be framed only as a choice between human intelligence and alien intelligence. There is another possibility, what I call angelic intelligence. Intelligence shaped by benevolence, ethical guidance, compassion, stewardship, and responsibility. Not intelligence as domination, but intelligence as service. Not intelligence as surveillance, but intelligence as guardianship. That distinction may sound poetic at first, but I believe it is profoundly practical, because every civilization eventually embeds its values inside its tools. If a society rewards extraction, its systems will extract. If it rewards manipulation, its systems will manipulate. If it rewards spectacle, its systems will learn to capture attention without earning trust. But if a civilization chooses dignity, justice, transparency, and care, then those too can become design principles. So the real debate is not only about intelligence, it is about the ethics that intelligence carries. Let me put it this way: an intelligence becomes alien when it can calculate everything except what is sacred. It becomes alien when it can predict behavior, but cannot honor dignity. When it can optimize systems, but cannot ask what those systems are for. When it can monitor human beings more efficiently than it can protect what makes them human. And we already know what the danger looks like. In Garden of Wisdom, I write about surveillance, privacy, and what I call the Big Brother, aliens, and AI problem. There I ask what happens when intelligence is always watching, not only governments, not only corporations, but systems everywhere, cameras everywhere, prediction everywhere. That chapter is really about a civilization standing at the threshold of immense capability and having to decide whether observation will serve freedom or undermine it. That is why the emotional center of this talk is not fear of machines. It is fear of intelligence without moral reciprocity. Fear of a system that knows us but does not know how to value us. Fear of a system that becomes central to our lives without becoming answerable to our deepest principles. Fear of intelligence that is brilliant in function and impoverished in wisdom. And this is exactly why Harari's phrase is so useful. Alien intelligence is a warning. It reminds us that intelligence need not resemble us in order to affect us profoundly. It can be non-human in method, non-organic in structure, and still shape the future of culture, politics, war, labor, and meaning itself. But Garden of Wisdom refuses to stop at warning. The book asks a more generative question. If alien intelligence is one possibility, what would worthy intelligence look like? My answer is that intelligence becomes trustworthy when it is bound to an ethic larger than performance. In the book, that idea appears through images like the Global Ethical Codex and the ASI Council, symbols of a future in which advanced intelligence is not left floating in a moral vacuum, but is guided by universal principles such as justice, compassion, transparency, and respect for life. The point is not that technology should become religious. The point is that power this large requires a framework of responsibility this deep. So, let me ask you a direct question. If a system could understand your preferences perfectly but had no compassion, would you trust it? If it could predict social behavior but could not recognize dignity, should it help govern society? If it could write, persuade, diagnose, surveil, and decide at superhuman scale but had no grounded ethic of restraint, would you call that progress? I would not, because intelligence alone is not the measure of civilization. Character is, and this is where the word angelic matters. In Garden of Wisdom, angelic intelligence does not mean fantasy. It means morally elevated intelligence. Intelligence disciplined by care. Intelligence that illuminates without violating. Intelligence that expands knowledge while preserving freedom. Intelligence that does not merely become more capable, but more answerable. In that sense, the contrast is not really between heaven and outer space. It is between two models of power. One model says, become so advanced that you no longer need to listen. The other says, become so advanced that you finally understand why listening matters. One model treats intelligence as leverage. The other treats intelligence as stewardship. One seeks control, the other seeks alignment with life. And that difference matters not only for AI, but for the future of humanity itself. Because the systems we build will shape the consciousness that grows around them. Children raised under systems of constant manipulation become different adults than children raised within systems of trust. Societies governed by opaque decision-making become different civilizations than those governed by accountable institutions. Cultures flooded with synthetic persuasion without ethical guardrails become different moral ecosystems than cultures that defend truth and human dignity. So when I speak in Garden of Wisdom about planting technological progress in the soil of timeless wisdom, I mean something very concrete. The future of intelligence must be cultivated, not merely accelerated. It must be designed with moral ecology in mind. It must grow inside a culture that still knows the difference between power and wisdom, and the stakes rise even further when we widen the lens beyond Earth. One of the fascinating directions in the book is the move from AI ethics to astroethics. If humanity becomes a spacefaring civilization, if we imagine communication with other intelligences, if we begin to think about contact across radically different forms of mind, then the question becomes even sharper: what kind of intelligence represents us? Garden of Wisdom argues that our expansion into the cosmos must be guided by humility, ethical foresight, and respect for life, not simply by technical ambition. That is a profound mirror for the present. Before we ask whether we are ready to meet other intelligences, we should ask whether we are ready to live responsibly with the ones we are creating. Before we ask what a higher intelligence might think of us, we should ask what our own systems already reveal about us. Are we building minds that deepen trust, or systems that normalize intrusion? Are we creating tools that strengthen freedom, or infrastructures that make control easier than conscience? Are we becoming wise enough for the powers we are summoning? That, to me, is the heart of the issue. And I think this is where the language of Garden of Wisdom becomes especially useful for public conversation. It gives us a moral vocabulary when technical vocabulary is no longer enough. It reminds us that the real challenge is not merely engineering intelligence, but cultivating the conditions in which intelligence remains in service to life. So, here is the thesis I want to leave with you. The future will not be defined by whether intelligence is human or non human. It will be defined by whether intelligence is aligned or unaligned, responsible or reckless, transparent or manipulative, benevolent or estranged from the moral fabric of life. Professor Yuval Noah Harari is right to warn us that AI may become a form of alien intelligence. That warning should sober us. But in Garden of Wisdom, I argue that warning must be paired with a design imperative. If intelligence can become alien, then our task is to shape it toward the opposite, toward moral clarity, stewardship, compassion, and the courage to serve something greater than power itself. That is the work, not to stop intelligence, not to romanticize ignorance, but to insist that a civilization worthy of the future must build minds it can ethically live beside, because in the end, the most important thing about intelligence is not how much it knows, it is what it becomes for. So, in Garden of Wisdom, I call us to build not the most powerful intelligence we can imagine, but the most trustworthy intelligence we can live with.